Welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express. In case you're just joining us, we're just delving deeper into how busy the weekend was, in this particular segment, the way it is, taking a look at some of the sentiments, political, that were mentioned over the weekend. The President, Uhuru Kenyatta, was around Nairobi County and some parts of Kiambu County launching various infrastructural projects touching on healthcare under the NMS rather. And he happened to mention a couple of words touching on the relationship between him and his deputy. Let's just listen to this as it forms the basis of our conversation right now.
Unakuja unasema kwa mdomo moja serikali ni mbaya, alafu kwa mdomo mwingine ati tumefanya kama serikali. Kwani serikali ni ngapi? Mnajua serikali ngapi Kenya hii? Ni moja ama ni mbili? Si ni moja? Si ni moja? Kama unataka uzuri wake, kae naye. Kama unataja ubaya wake, toka uache wale wengine waendelee.
Well, President Uhuru Kenyatta coming out, shooting straight at his deputy. Kama unataka serikali ingine, unaweza enda. If you want this serikali, you can definitely try and work with it. But the deputy definitely did not take this lying down. He did respond to President Uhuru Kenyatta in this particular words. Listen in.
And I will continue to work as Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya because that is my place in the Constitution.
Just a snippet of what was said over this weekend. And let me bring into the conversation our panelist, still with us, Arthur Odera, who's the former Teso North Member of Parliament. We're also joined via way of Zoom, Alex Manyasi, who's a governance and policy expert. And we're also joined in studio by Peter Nabulindo, who's an aspiring Member of Parliament in Matungu constituency under the ANC party. Gentlemen, many thanks for your time and patience right here. I'll start with you, Arthur Odera. Interesting sentiments, but I'd like your quick reaction from each and every one of you on what was mentioned. At first, what President Uhuru Kenyatta did mention. Is this the first time we've had him come out straightforward, shooting at his deputy, telling him to shape up or shape out?
Unsurprising, if you ask me. From the moment the president mentioned the Tangatanga word, remember the Tangatanga word came from the president's mouth.
All right. All right, Arthur, allow me to cut you short. Apologies. We'll try and fix your mic. Let me just pick the sentiments of, I'll start with Peter Nabulindo, perhaps your quick reaction to what was mentioned over the weekend. At first, what the president mentioned and the quick reaction, as we've seen from Deputy President William Ruto. What's your take on this?
Thank you. I think it is time for people to make decisions. It's time for people to make decisions. The president is very clear that if it's not working for you, please leave. And the deputy president says, I won't leave, despite the fact that it's not working for me. I think the onus is on the deputy president to leave, because all Kenyans know that it has not been working for him. It is not working for him. They have been pulling in different directions. It is time for him to stand up as a leader, a man, and a respectable person in society and say, since I'm not subscribing to this kind of relationship in this coalition, I leave. Let me quit and go and do something else. Let me organize myself for 2022. According to me, it's immoral for the deputy president to continue drawing a salary and enjoying privileges assigned to the deputy president of that office, and yet he is not actually working for the government or with the president. I think, to me, it will be better for him to quit and organize himself if he wants to be a leader that will be respected in this community.
But we've heard from him, he definitely isn't taking a step back. And perhaps that's the nature of his politics. Arthur Odera, let me get back to you. Your quick reaction before we build up on this particular conversation.
I mean, I am not surprised by the sentiments of the president. Right from the day he uttered the Tangatanga word, which then the Tanga team latched onto and started using, you could see that there's bad blood between the president and the deputy president. And there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of moves and activities and political movement since then, culminating in the president now saying, essentially, I mean, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that while he did not name names, that he's referring to the deputy president. But then let's ask ourselves a few questions. Legally and politically, the deputy president has no reason to leave government. He was elected on the same ticket as the president. That's the Jubilee ticket. He is therefore the de jure and the de facto deputy president till the end of that term. He has no reason legally to leave. Number two, politically, he benefits a lot from being in government. And let me tell you, if you listen to the deputy president's speech in Gatundu, and there has been many other speeches. In Gatundu, I mean the Honorable Wainaina's mother's funeral, he spoke about ongoing projects. And I think the unstated message that the deputy president was passing to the people of Gatundu and by extension the people of central Kenya is, listen, you guys, when you were seeking these projects, you came to me. The president was too busy doing other things. I set these projects in motion. I made sure there was funding for these projects. Now they are being done. And trust me, the deputy president will continue to do that across the country, and being in government benefits him a lot. Now, the argument has been from many political players that the deputy president is against government. He is not against government. He, as the deputy president, if government means Jubilee, the party, the manifesto, and what the executive stands for and is seeking to achieve for the people of Kenya, the deputy president is actually well in sync with what the Jubilee manifesto wants him to do. The flashpoint between the deputy president and the president and Raila Odinga on the other side is BBI. And BBI is if you like, is a document that finds itself in a place where it is being seen through the prism of 2022. The real flashpoint, if we go back and examine the facts and the figures, is 2022, but then BBI is being seen by both parties with suspicion that the opposition to it is aimed at breaking our momentum for 2022, while one party sees it as the opportunity to create momentum for 2022. And therein lies the problem, therein lies the potential for a lot of high-octane politics in Kenya, and therefore the potential for conflict. And as we continue to go into 2020, let us accept that we must be adherents to the Constitution, to the laws of Kenya, and give everybody their due space.
Well, that's quite true. He's there and he's been given that mandate by the people of Kenya. Let me cross over to Bwana Wanyasi. It would be interesting to get your take because Arthur has just mentioned right here that the BBI is definitely adding salt to injury one or the other. The Deputy President did mention that he will continue working with President Uhuru Kenyatta and he will focus on the Big Four agenda and delivering it right after the referendum is done in June. What do you make of these sentiments that were mentioned by the executive members?
Yeah, the relationship, of course, between the president and his deputy are a bit more historical than what we are seeing today. If you asked me, then I will tell you probably that their differences might have been there before the first term ended. It's just that they needed each other for purposes of the second term, and probably the president also needed the DP for re-election, and therefore the possibility of their marriage breaking in the first term was not an option for them. So at that time, it must have been a marriage of convenience. And if you go back to the history of how they ran on the same ticket, it also tells you that it was also a marriage of convenience in the sense that both of them were facing cases of crimes against humanity at The Hague in the Netherlands, and therefore both of them were, truly speaking, both of them were needed. And their communities, and both of them being brought together to think through how they are going to survive the cases, and both then formed that into a political narrative that brought the two warring communities into one, that brought them into power. But having said that, we'll also realize that after the election, the deputy president, being a very smart politician, had a hand in every MP that is working around with him today in terms of the re-election of the last election. He had a direct hand. In the Jubilee nominations, what had been said that he played a very big role, even in the nomination of the people that are in office today. And so alikuwa amejipanga vizuri. And by extension, when the first term ended and the second term started, the president of this Republic of Kenya had lost power completely. The president had no idea what was going on in government. The DP was running the show. Every project around the country was planned and executed by the DP. And therefore, his lieutenants, and I want to imagine this one now, I want to make it, to look at it from the imagination that probably the people who sit around him and the people who are in State House realized that they had a ceremonial president and a president who was not in control of the country. But remember, for him to run the country, he needed parliament. For him to run the country, he needed the executive. And remember that this was a government that was shared. So the DP had very powerful ministers, so to speak. And if you look at it like that, then for the president to then come back and take control of the government, with the DP running half of the government, if not more, then he brought in Raila Odinga to try and fix a few things in terms of the politics, in terms of looking at how to run parliament. And of course, that then is the one act that now separated them officially. They were in government together, but the DP was running government. And then the president brought in Raila Odinga through the handshake and brought in troops in parliament and therefore started making changes in government. And by extension, tried to take control of government with the assurance of the opposition that now he can actually get things running in parliament. So if you look at that history, then the differences between the president and the DP did not start today. The unfortunate bit is that we are seeing a scenario where, for the first time in the history of this country, we have a DP standing up to his boss. We have not seen this in many countries in the world. It does not happen, it has not happened, and probably it's the first time, and some of us were of a very strong opinion that part of what BBI should have fixed is the power struggle between the president and the DP. Because as long as it remains the way it is, legally there's nothing the president can do to William Ruto. He cannot remove him from office unless William Ruto walks away. And his walking away, of course, is detrimental to his political future because he needs power and machinery of government to continue running for president. So that is the situation that we find ourselves in, which is very unfortunate.
All right, Alex Manyasi, well noted. We'll definitely continue with this particular conversation, but I'd like to bring into the foray news just reaching our studios right now, all touching on Mohammed Yusuf Haji, who is said to have just passed on. Reaching our studios right now, Mohammed Yusuf Haji, the senator, has just passed on. We're definitely trying to find more information touching on this particular development that is reaching our studios right now. Keen to note he has served quite instrumentally in various administrations. He was the Minister of Defense in Kenya from 2008 to 2013, of course, assuming the role of senator in 2013 in Garissa County. We're still trying to find out more information about this, but that's the latest reaching our studios right now. Senator Haji Mohammed Yusuf has just passed on. More information coming your way, even as we try and establish more information from the ground. But this is touching on a man who was quite instrumental, perhaps, in the formation of the Building Bridges Initiative document. And perhaps we can also touch briefly on his role on that. Arthur Odera, perhaps a quick mention on that as we continue with our discussion.
That's a name, Jesse, that has hung. For me, I've known Mohammed Yusuf Haji from news, since childhood.
Yes.
He was at some point provincial commissioner Rift Valley and played a big role there. He's been in public life, I suppose, for more than 40 years. And I know him as, having served in the last parliament, he was a highly, highly, highly respected elder, especially in the northeastern part of Kenya, but generally nationally. And to think that the two promoters of BBI, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, trusted him to co-chair the Building Bridges team tells you just how highly regarded he was, not just as an individual with effectiveness, but the ability to bring people together. And I think that's what we will live to remember Mohamed Yusuf Haji about. And condolences to his family and his friends, and certainly the people of Garissa who had trusted him to represent them in Senate. May God rest his soul in peace.
Okay, we'll definitely continue delving, getting more information for you, but that's the latest. Senator Yusuf Haji, the senator for Garissa County, has passed on. Most recently, he chaired the BBI task force. His family has confirmed he was sick. We're definitely informed that he was flown to Turkey for treatment late last year, but returned to the country recently, and he passed on at the Aga Khan Hospital on Monday morning. Remember, this is a developing story. We'll definitely get more information for you. But as it is, Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji has passed on. We'll definitely try and get the feel of people in Garissa County, even as this news breaks today early morning. We'll definitely keep you updated about this unfortunate turn of events. Condolences to the family members. Of course, even as we appreciate the developing news right now, we definitely can't get sidetracked and forget to talk about what happened over the weekend. Alex Manyasi had just given us his input on the rich history and how this was a long time coming. Arthur Odera, even as you mentioned this, with the inception of the 2010 Constitution, President Uhuru Kenyatta might go down as the only president who has not switched deputies. And going back to the days of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga as the vice president, when he wrote that famous letter in terms of his resignation, and the terms of his resignation, they were quite clear. But fast forward, with the inception of the 2010 Constitution, the only options the president has in terms of the working relationship with his deputy is either impeachment or resignation. What way? What do you make of this?
I think, taking everything into account, the position of deputy president, designed as it is with all the protections it has, was intended to give us some balance, was intended to be a check. Not just on the power of the president, but also to provide stability to the leadership of the country. And it has done that. It has done that. If you ask me to just zero in on what the problem between the deputy president and the president is really, the genesis of it is the ambition of the deputy president to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta. That is the crux of everything. Everything else stems from that. His supposed opposition to BBI, his statements, his desire to take credit for some of the things that have been done by government, his conflict with Raila Odinga, all of it emanates from the fact that the deputy president is interested in becoming the president of Kenya immediately after Uhuru Kenyatta. And therein lies the problem. Now, if you were to then go back and say, but yeah, how does it manifest itself? It manifests itself in what the president has said many times. Stop campaigning, or stop looking like you're campaigning. The deputy president, on the other hand, gets a lot of safety in the fact that he's the deputy president. He goes around launching projects. His statements are something between campaigning and taking credit for what government has done. Some of the credit fairly will go to Uhuru Kenyatta anyway, because he's the president. Now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I think there could be safeguards that could be put in place legally to make sure that there is a level of harmony between the president and his deputy, to commit them more rather than to a relationship between two individuals, because that's what we've ridden on. Since 2013, a lot of what we found was that there was a positive, warm, accommodating relationship between the president and his deputy, between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, When that personal relationship did not give each one of them what they wanted out of it, then they went their separate ways. Could we find a legal mechanism for ensuring that the two are more committed to the manifesto, to the promises they made to Kenyans, to the basis upon which they were elected, rather than relying purely on a personal relationship?
Well, it's interesting you bring in the politics of personalities, which features prominently in Kenyan politics instead of politics of manifestos and agenda. Before I engage the other panelists, let's just listen in to some of the sentiments that were also shared by ODM leader Raila Odinga, touching on what President Uhuru Kenyatta had to say on Friday last week, touching on his relationship with Deputy President William Ruto, or rather their working relationship. Listen in.
Msikia Rais Uhuru akisema ati hawezi kuacha utawala kwa wezi. Msikia hiyo? Si Uhuru ndiye rais. Akisema namna hiyo, wewe unajua kitu gani ndani yake kushinda yeye? Kuna yeye kitu unajua kumshinda yeye? Si yeye anajua.
Na William Ruto juzi rais amesema ya kwamba aidha uko ndani ya serikali ama uko nje ya serikali.
Kenda Narok tumejenga hii pande nyingine unapinga serikali. Sio ni double speak. Sio ni double speak. Ati Raila ndiye ameleta mambo mbaya katika serikali. Raila hapana, yuko ndani ya serikali. No. Raila yuko ndani ya serikali. Kazi imeshinda ama sivyo?
Well, interesting sentiments right there from Raila Odinga as he was in Narok over this weekend. But Deputy President also had a reaction to this. Let's just listen in to what he had to say.
Nasikia mtu ya kitendawili ati leo anasema serikali ya Jubilee haijafanya chochote. Mimi nataka nimwambie bwana kitendawili, wewe uamue. Hauwezi kuwa unasema uko na sisi na huku unasema ya kwamba serikali hii haijafanya kazi yoyote. Mimi nataka nimwambie bwana kitendawili, kama ako na macho aone, kama ako na masikio asikie, kama ako na akili atumie. Serikali ya Jubilee tumejenga reli kilomita 700. Tumejenga barabara kilomita 7,000. Tumejenga technical training colleges 140. Tumeunganisha Wakenya milioni 5 kwa huduma ya stima wapya. Wewe uwezi kusema ya kwamba hii serikali haijafanya kazi yoyote. Serikali ya Uhuru Kenyatta na mimi nikiwa Deputy President, hiyo kazi tumefanya na Wakenya wameona na macho.
Peter Nabulindo, what do you make of that?
It's very interesting. Actually, it's very interesting that everybody is asking the other to quit. And as I had said, it is time for people to make decisions. If the Deputy President thinks that he's uncomfortable working with the government which he was actually elected to work with, then he has the right to make a decision not to work with them and step aside or walk out. I think, in my opinion, he will build a more robust campaign for 2022 for his bid for presidency if he leaves this government.
But that's not an option, as going by his words. So what next for the working relationship in which Kenyans entrusted President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto?
Yes, they should fix their relationship.
It's simple.
They should fix their relationship. It is actually pointless living in one house and quarreling every day, and everybody pulling in different directions. Actually, it's for the good of Kenyans if the two leaders will sit down and maybe iron out their differences until 2022 when they part ways. Because it's not a good show for the top two leaders in Kenya to be pulling in different directions publicly. And maybe the former Prime Minister is actually adding some petrol in the fire between the two,
Okay.
because you can see he's telling the deputy president some ideas on how to work with his own government.
Okay, so Alex Manyasi, this is an interesting scenario. DP Ruto mentioning that it's unfortunate of those who are expected to be in opposition to keep the government in check are now confused about their role, while the opposition leader, perceived to be ODM leader Raila Odinga, is actually pointing fingers, saying the DP is disloyal and unfit to lead Kenya. What do you make of this lingo?
You know, currently as it is, William Ruto, even though the deputy president legally and in government legally, technically speaking, he's almost in the opposition. And even though Raila Odinga, not legally and in office as in government, is more in government than William Ruto. The only difference is that William Ruto could be having access to intelligence and things like that, which Raila will get from probably as a third party and not necessarily as a second or first. But the reality also is that part of why the president has the confidence to do what he's doing is because he has Raila Odinga, he has his troops to count on, especially in parliament, and the advice that he gets from the former premier. So those are realities that we have to deal with. The deputy president, on the other hand, is mentioning the projects that they have invested in and the work that they have done as the Jubilee government. Some of us have problems with that. Some of those things are great, power, connection to the national grid, even though we are not even speaking about the cost of power. However, some of the projects that have been mentioned by the Jubilee administration are the problems that have brought the projects that have brought us problems that we are speaking in the beginning of this show, where we were talking about the cost of living, the cost of debt. We were talking about the cost of the economy. Remember, this country was in the red before COVID. So what brought this country to the red before COVID was actually the Jubilee administration. And so in my view, if the two probably worked together, maybe they will have fixed our problems. But that's not a guarantee. But at the same time, now that the two are not working together, both of them cannot run away from the fact that the current challenges we're having today were partly and directly contributed by the decisions that were made. And here we are talking about the cost of the projects that were laid out and the borrowing that we did. So how do we get out of the mess? One of the ways is that they are the ones, unfortunately, for the 1.5 years or so that is remaining, it will be very difficult for them to fix the problems that we have economically. We have not seen tangible decisions that are being made with regards to making sure that we fix the issue of the wastage. What we have seen then instead is that we are raising taxes to raise more revenue. And therefore, in my view, if you look at it like that, the chances of fixing our problems are much lower. The debt aspect, for example, we have seen that even the people that we owe money, the only thing they have done is to postpone our payment. But when those payments arrive, Kenyans should brace themselves for harder and difficult times ahead, because the economy is not going to improve as much as we expect, and therefore the political rhetoric, unfortunately, that we are being treated to is not going to solve the problems that we have currently.
Many thanks. We'll definitely continue taking a look at that. We'll also take a look at the current take strategy employed by the proponents of the BBI, especially the party leaders, in terms of giving the party stand. And before we get to that, let's just appreciate the fact that we have developing news reaching our studios right now that Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji is dead. Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji has passed on. Most recently, he chaired the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force for quite some time. But taking a look at his well-checkered political and professional career in administration and management, he joined the provincial administration of Kenya quite a while back as a district officer in 1960. growing to serve as a provincial commissioner between 1970 and 1997. Later on, he was nominated as a member of the Kenyan Parliament in 1998 and later elected an official member of Parliament on a Kenya African National Union ticket, better known as KANU. Now, from 1998 to 2001, he did work as an assistant minister in the office of the president and subsequently acted as the office's minister of state for cabinet affairs in 2002. And on a KANU ticket, Haji was elected to represent Ijara constituency in the National Assembly of Kenya at the 2007 parliamentary elections. Later on, he did serve and he was appointed as Kenya's Minister of State for Defense after the 2007 general elections. Later on in 2011, he did meet, he and other Kenyan delegation met with the transitional federal government of Somalia in terms of the work Kenya was trying to do with the neighbors Somalia. Quite a checkered career. Also in 2012, he signed yet another agreement officially rehearting Kenya's deployed military forces in Somalia. And he also did serve as Minister of Defense, ending in 2013. Later on, he did assume the position of senator, which he was serving till his passing on. That's the latest reaching our studios. Senator Yusuf Haji is dead. He most recently did chair the BBI task force, which is quite an achievement, bearing in mind it is causing clamor in terms of constitutional reforms. He was unwell and flown to Turkey for treatment late last year, but returned to the country recently, and he passed on at the Aga Khan Hospital on Monday morning. We'll definitely get more information for you as and when it reaches our studios. Right, now let's continue with our discussion today, and I'd like to at least shift focus and take a look at the latest in terms of the Building Bridges initiative. 3 counties so far have passed the Amendment Bill 2020, Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay being among them, but we did see one of the counties, Baringo County, and it was dramatic, actually pushed down this particular constitutional amendment bill 2020. So I'd like us to focus on perhaps even as the counties, other counties take this into their debate and to the floor of the House in terms of public participation and the likes. Arthur Odera, what do you make of the current take strategy being used by parties? Among them, the Jubilee Party. We did have the Secretary General Raphael Tuju actually give the official party position, but as it goes, it doesn't seem to be implemented if Baringo is anything to go by.
You know, elected members of the National Assembly, the County Assembly, the Senate, their oath is to protect the Constitution and not to protect party positions. So a party position is only a guide. It is not a compulsion to go any direction, and members are expected to vote on the basis of their conscience and on the basis of what they perceive to be the desire of those who elected them. And therefore, Baringo, to me, was unsurprising that it went the way it went. And it's all about the big picture of people who see that the deputy president, who happens to be popular in that area and in many other areas in Rift Valley, they see that the deputy president is opposed to the BBI. And therefore, because he is opposed to the BBI, they will vote down the BBI. And that is completely, to me, that's completely unsurprising. However, if you look at Baringo, of course, the questions being asked about Baringo, you know, this is the home of, you know, one of the key proponents of BBI, Senator Gideon Moi. Is Gideon Moi therefore being seen as a great player in BBI, and was he able to carry Baringo along with him? And I think that question can be answered by answering the question of who does Rift Valley, North Rift, South Rift, let's say Kalenjin Rift Valley, who does Kalenjin Rift Valley see as carrying their hope for 2022? And remember that during Mzee Arap Moi's time, this is a region that knows what it means to have a president. This is a region that knows what comes with having their man, as they call it, at the helm of the country. And therefore, they are bound to be very passionate about certain things. And if you noticed, though, that there was fighting in the county assembly before the bill was rejected at the end of the day, which tells you that the sentiments are not unanimous. There is a lot of division in the county assembly, but the no side won. However, I saw clips later that seemed to be indicating that there was some regret in some quarters about the having rejected the bill. What was that about? Was that about the fact that, the possible fact that some people were incentivized to vote against the bill, or is that to do with what then the MP for Rongai later talked about, that Baringo is a very poor county, and that's a fact. There's a lot of poverty in Baringo. There's a lot of deprivation in Baringo, issues to do with water, access to education, access to electricity and infrastructure generally are serious issues in many parts of Baringo. Has that to do with that? Because then the argument is, if BBI is supposed to bring us more money for us to be able to do some of these things, some of which money will come to the county and a lot of which will go to the ward, why then are you rejecting this bill? And that's the big question. And I think that question will be asked many, many times coming, and it will be asked even in the 2022 election.
Well, that's really proper. Alex Manyasi, what do you make of the clamor around BBI, especially since the Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho just over the weekend did mention that the government is set to distribute 10 million copies of the BBI report. I didn't specify when, but in terms of answering critics, he did mention, yes, there are soft copies, but we'll make the hard copies available. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, the distribution of the copies can happen. However, I am not certain that the distribution of the copies in itself will change the direction that the BBI propaganda will go, especially at the county assembly level. Why I say that is the discussion we're having about Baringo. You see that the power struggle is actually influencing how the BBI debate was done in the House and how the decision was made. So it's not majorly about the understanding of the document, but it's majorly about the power struggle and showing who is then pulling shots in that place. That's why, for example, in Raila Odinga's backyard, we are not having a discussion around whether or not they are going to pass the document. But Baringo specifically is unique because the people of Baringo have given a lot of respect. A lot of respect to the former president, and they elected Gideon Moi on Kanu, even when largely most of the county assembly members were elected on Jubilee, and a few, I think, 4 on Kanu. And so the fact that they elected Mzee's son is the respect they have for him. However, if you look at Gideon himself, he's also been trying to make sure that he asserts himself as a leader in that region, and therefore, by extension, politics being local, that's where it starts before you can show national interest. But of course, William Ruto's influence in that region has been overshadowing. And that's why if you look at even his installation as elder and moving in that direction is all geared towards making sure and that he positions himself as the point person when it comes to issues around Rift Valley and Kalenjin. But the aspect of BBI, the unfortunate aspect is that it's not going to be about the content of the document, but it's going to be around who is for the document and who is against the document. And therefore, the county assemblies will largely, more than 70%, will vote based on that argument. And so the influence that the leaders will have on the county assemblies is going to determine how the county assemblies vote, either for or against the bill. But when it comes to Kenyans, then that will be a different discussion altogether. However, the first point, of course, is if the county assemblies pass it, then the possibilities of Kenyans passing it is much higher. But of course, if the counties don't pass it, then it's dead on arrival. It means the story ends there and we move on with life.
If it's possible to separate the political angle surrounding BBI from the contents of it, are we past that stage right now?
So the unfortunate bit is that even the discussion as it is today, we've not, as Kenyans, passed the position where we can say we can discuss content without discussing who is against it and who is for it. And if you look at the members of parliament, for example, those who are allied to Tanga and Kieleweke, people are saying no and saying yes, depending on where they stand politically and whom they are supporting, which is very unfortunate. And again, this is what brings Kenyans now to a point where it's about time that Kenyans also started making decisions as Kenyans. It's about time that the county assemblies started making decisions as county assemblies and not as stooges of political parties or political leaders. And you see, respecting the opinion or the view of the political party in itself is not a guarantee that a document like this, for example, should be passed or should be rejected based on the position of the political party. Because this is a constitutional amendment which is meant to affect Kenyans as all of us. So we cannot have a scenario where, for example, we are saying that we will pass or reject the document based on what people have said we should pass or reject. And so ultimately, Kenyans should be advised that they should think about their lives first. One of the things that Kenyans have never understood is that they never think about their lives as first priority. They always think that if the politicians think for them, then automatically their lives will improve if they tell them that their lives are going to improve. That is not always going to be the case. And it's going to be like this for quite some time in this country, because most of the time, the interest of the political class and the interest of the people in leadership and the interest of the businessmen will always come first when it comes to those people. And so the more they think about thinking and they think individually as people, then that will then start changing the political class to a point where they will see that unless they think with Kenyans, then Kenyans will kick them out of office. That is the only way that politics will respect the opinion of the people. So the more we take decisions based on our own understanding of what we need, whether as a leader or not, then that is going to make Kenya better than when we make decisions based on the sides of the political divide. Because you can't tell me, for example, that someone in Kericho will think the exact opposite of someone in Bondo, and yet both of them are Kenyans and they are poor. That is not possible.
Bulindo, what do you make of the BBI clamor? But even as you tell us your take on this, it would be proper to note the new entrant in the presidential race, Mukhisa Kituyi. What do you make of his entrance? Is there political hurdle ahead of him in terms of the nature of politics, where we have tribal kingpins, quote unquote, and there seems to already be kingpins in Western Kenya as it is?
Definitely, it's going to be a big hurdle for him to when he's coming into the politics of Kenya, because his foundation is actually in Western Kenya, where he will build his foundation as he goes out to the rest of the country, seeking for more support. Mm-hmm. But it's a challenge for him because the house that he has to build the foundation is already full, and it's already taken over, and people are already in control. Honorable Musalia Mudavadi and Honorable Wetangula have taken control of Western Kenya, and they are the kingpins. Mm-hmm. So his entry is actually going to be difficult for him, and it's going to cause maybe jitters for the other kingpins. But Kenya is a democratic country, and he has all the rights to vie for presidency if he wishes to, and ask Kenyans to support him. If they will accept, then he'll become the president. But he has to know that Kenya is now he has been away for a long time, and he's entering into a very different political scenario all the same.
Okay, and I'd like to rebound on that particular note. Arthur Odera, can one claim a proper stake in the Kenyan electorate? We know a day in politics is definitely a long time, so he can vie constitutionally, but with the political and tribal angle within Western Kenya, is this a hurdle for him?
There's two ways to think about the Mukhisa Kituyi candidature.
Yes.
One is to look at the individual. Mukhisa Kituyi, what is he, what does he represent? Why on earth might he be interested in the presidency of Kenya, leaving an anchored job that gave him all the profile in the world that he might have craved? And he did a fantastic job. Mukhisa Kituyi is a man of profile. He is a brilliant guy. He is a thinker. He can dissect issues and present them in a simple, easy to understand manner. He is a performer. He's turned around UNCTAD from a almost moribund organization into an organization with a big part to play in world economy. I remember that in the course of his UNCTAD career, Mukhisa Kituyi brought investors into Kenya, as he did to Rwanda and to several other African countries, with the patriotism of an African child that was sent to the global stage to play and try to bring some benefits home. He brought those investors to Kenya who promised to take Kenyan products to the global markets, to open the way for Kenyan produce. And you know what that does? It not only presents Kenyan produce to the global market, but it provides a pull factor in the economy locally. If wheat has a big lucrative market, then it's likely that more Kenyans will farm wheat because it provides them with the income they want.
Yeah.
We did nothing or very little. Rwanda did something about it, and last year, Rwanda earned $20 billion, 20 billion shillings equivalent from that initiative alone. And that tells you that this is a guy who thinks through issues, finds solutions to problems, and tries to provide solutions. He's been a minister in Kenya. He's been a member of parliament for 3 terms, elected by the people of Kimilili. And in my opinion, he is a brilliant guy who can make a difference in life. Now, let's come to the political reality. The political reality is that in Kenya, the established names that have dug deep and established an infrastructure for political power play everywhere in Kenya. Going to Western Kenya, you will find players. There are many more. There's Musalia Mudavadi, there is Moses Wetangula, Senator for Bungoma, there is Eugene Wamalwa, who is a Minister for Devolution. They are all over the place. There are also governors who are seeking a stake at the national level in Western Kenya. And some of them are reputable, like Governor Paranya, the immediate former chairman of the COG. These are guys who are bound to have a voice. Now, the Mukhisa Kituyi, the presidential candidate, the first hurdle he has to jump is the hurdle of trying to offer himself and to be seen by Western Kenya as the candidate that can deliver the presidency to Western Kenya. Western Kenya, remember, is a huge voting bloc. Huge voting bloc that can make a huge difference. Anybody who wants to be president in Kenya has to go to Western and try to put those votes to his basket. Without that, you're likely to have a problem, because that is a voting bloc that has for a long time been seen to be fractious. So the urge then is to find a formula for bringing that voting bloc together and bringing them to yourself. If Mukhisa Kituyi can manage to do that, and the trick would be in managing to offer himself as a more formidable, a more promising, a more credible, and a more effective presidential candidate than the others that are already existing.
Okay, that's interesting. Alex Manyasi, why is the TAM project, the project of the previous administration, quite detrimental in terms of getting into the 2022 general election? Because we had this come up a couple of times, not just linked to Mukhisa Kituyi, but we've also had the ANC party leader, Musalia Mudavadi, say he's his own man, totally desisting or pushing away from that the project of the previous administration. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, being branded as a project usually would spoil your name in the sense that if people are usually jittery about people being pushed to them. And so the more you're branded as a project, the more you look weak, the more you look like you're not a decision maker by yourself. And therefore, the more reasons why it's important not to be branded as a project. If I can just speak about Mukhisa Kituyi a bit. Mukhisa Kituyi was my MP for 15 years. He's someone I know very well, even though during this time I have not spoken to him about his ambitions and about what his strategy is. His cousin, Wamalo Kijana, the late, came close to bring the Luhya community together. I'm saying his cousin because Eugene is also his cousin, and he has not managed to do that. So one of the things that Mukhisa Kituyi, of course, if you look at the mannerisms and the character of the late Wamala Kijana and Mukhisa Kituyi, probably they are two worlds apart. But both of them were brilliant men. And Mukhisa Kituyi, if he can manage to do just one thing, bringing the Luhya community together, that then will mess up the political scene of very many other players. I'm saying that because the population of the Luhya community is so huge right now, and its voting bloc being one cannot be ignored by any other player. Number two, the neutrality of the fact that he's not been in the scene and he's not been part of the mess that we're witnessing today in itself can be an advantage. So if he came with the community and came to the national platform as a player who is neutral and therefore has not been involved in all the things that we think have gone wrong in this country, then that will make him, give him a good platform. However, just like my colleagues have said, it's going to be an uphill task. I don't know what his strategy is. I don't know how he's planning to do this, but there are several things that he has to do. And one of them, for example, I have listened to him speak. I listened to him speak yesterday, and I've listened to him speak before. One of the things that he will immediately have to do is climb down from the academic way of looking at things to bringing down to explain to Kenyans what that means. Because you see, when you start talking to Kenyans about increasing the pie, what does that mean? When you start talking about creating jobs, you need to be specific about how you're going to do that. Kenyans, the academic way of looking at things, the way we will speak about how we will do things and the way we will explain to Kenyans how we'll do things, sometimes it has to be looked at very differently. And that he needs to, then his strategies or himself, we need to think about how they message the information he has with regards to how he wants to fix the economy of Kenya. That's number one. And then number two, even his choice of running mate will be a key factor. I'm saying a key factor because Mukhisa Kituyi as a person, if he's going to continue campaigning using the same words he was using yesterday, and using the terminology he was using yesterday, then he will need a more streetwise running mate for purposes of making sure that he then
all right, Manyasi.
That process.
Allow me to cut you short right there. We'll definitely pick your mind right after this, but allow us to focus on the breaking news that's reaching our studios right now. Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji is dead. As we informed you earlier on, he did pass on earlier on at the Aga Khan Hospital this particular morning. And we're definitely trying to delve more information about this, bearing in mind he represented the people of Garissa as senator and most recently chaired the Building Bridges Initiative Task Force for quite a while. I'm informed we have Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka joining us by way of phone. We just want to deliberate on the man that was the Senator Yusuf Haji. Speaker, many thanks for your time, even as we talk this unfortunate news. Talk to us about the man Yusuf Haji was and the role he played in the Senate.
Thank you very, very much. First, I would want to take this opportunity on behalf of myself and on behalf of the Senate to convey our message of condolence to the late Senator Yusuf Haji, who, as all of you know, has served this country in various capacities, having served as a district officer, as a district commissioner, as a long-serving provincial commissioner, as a minister for defense, and lastly, his tour of service in this country has been as the senator for Garissa. In the Senate, he's been a very, very sober debater, handling most issues as an elder. And he has been the voice of reason in the Senate. Any time that we have had hot issues, Mohamed Haji has been one to moderate the debate and bring sobriety in the Senate. So we'll remember him very, very, very well as being somebody who was very sober in his debates. And I even remember that during the times of the share of revenue, you remember the very contagious formula that was in the Senate for a long time. Haji, the late Haji, was one of the elders who were very, very sober. And secondly, anytime we also wanted any negotiations, any discussions, whenever things were hot, we would always revert to Honorable Senator Yusuf Haji as one of the elders in the Senate. So his role has been that of trying to moderate discussions in the debate in terms of appearing as an elder, and therefore we shall really miss him and miss his contribution.
Okay, Speaker, perhaps you can inform us about some of the preparations in terms of the burial and his final resting place. Any information you can give us this far?
This far, not yet. I'm trying to get in touch with the DPP, with his son Nurdin, and other family members to find out exactly what the burial arrangements are. Remember, it just passed on early this morning, and therefore the family is still in the process of trying to come to terms with what has happened. And anytime I get any information, I should be able to share that with you immediately.
All right, many thanks. Speaker Kenneth Lusaka right there, just giving us a picture of the man that was Senator Yusuf Haji, the latest reaching our studios. He has just passed on earlier on this particular morning at the MP Shah Hospital. Definitely a checkered career in terms of administration and management. Right before he joined politics, he served as a district officer or rising in that particular administration as a provincial commissioner, serving between 1970 to 1997, quite some time before he joined politics, and the Kanu ticket, representing the constituency of Ijara. Not just that, he did serve as a member of parliament, as a minister as well, under the Kibaki regime, later on assuming the position of Garissa senator. We'll definitely give you more information as it reaches us. As you've heard from Speaker Kenneth Lusaka, the family is definitely coming to terms with this unfortunate news. So condolences to the family members. But even as that happens, we'll keep you up to speed with the preparations in terms of his final resting place. All right, let's take a short break right now on Morning Express. When we come back, gentlemen are still with me. They've been very patient, and thank you so much for that. We'll come back and take a look at still the issues surrounding the BBI, the elusive Luya unity, and perhaps one story that has been highlighted on the dailies. It's all a mad rush for new political parties. What does this mean? Do stay with us.